So, after many of you have speculated about my stance on race, especially my recent one, I've decided to make a video about it. Because heck, I love talking about things that will probably get me kicked off YouTube and every other social media website.
Boy, that escalated quickly. I mean, that really got out of hand fast.
So at the time, I only saw racism as a thing that white people did to black people. Despite the fact that I as a kid was racially profiled for being German, for example, I got called a Nazi on the playground, etc., I never actually assumed that that was a case of racism. I just thought, heck, that's just people being assholes, right?
Prince on, I've been on, bitch you been con, Bentley tints on, Fendi prints on, ayo I've been off.
But what we weren't told as wee little youngsters is that Africans were enslaving, killing and raping people long before the white man arrived. Despite the aggression probably increasing due to slavery, the white man still did a lot of good things for Africa.
Here in the UK, Queen Elizabeth was checking out real gold at the Bank of England. The Queen and the Duke of Edinburgh saw 63,000 gold bars during a tour of a vault at the bank. The bars were stacked in 8 rows. Each 4-ton stack is 4 shelves high, and each bar weighs 29 pounds.
It is such a good night to kiss. It is such a good night to dance. It is such a good night to Scooby-Doo-Doo-Doo, 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 love. It is such a good night to kiss. It is such a good night to dance. It is such a good night to Scooby-Doo-Doo-Doo, 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 love.
Sober up old drunken Uncle Willie. Let him settle it. But it must be somebody from within the family. Now the African is in a bind by the European. Now let us explain something that a whole lot of people have got misconceptions about. Whether the Africans had slavery before the Europeans. In the European sense, no. Servitude is not slavery. They had worse servitude here in the United States, whites against whites. Many times the Africans in wars or difficulties would capture other African groups. These groups would have to work their way out of indenture, either tending cattle or doing something. Some groups built up a surplus of labor. The Africans had no big ships to take from Africans down the coast. So he knew a king further down who needed some labor. Now that the Portuguese are there, he hired some of the Portuguese to take these Africans from one part of Africa and another. Now the European is interpreting this as meaning the African was in the slave trade. The African was not in the slave trade, and you let people beat you over the head with nonsense because you have not studied African culture to understand that the nature of African servitude, one to the other, had no relationship to the slave trade, that the slave trade was the greatest holocaust, the greatest drainage on a people in the history of the world. Africans had no ships that he could connect 3 continents. And even if the African was in the slave trade, he could not have brought it off. He didn't have a ship that would hold 100 people along the coast. Mostly big fishing boats and river boats.
If that's that's not a case of extreme racism. Then what does the word racism even mean? Let us delve into the crime rate of America. About 13% of Americans are black, according to the estimates from the US Census Bureau. And yes, according to the Bureau of Justice Statistics, black offenders committed 52% of homicides. This was in data recorded between 1980 and 2008.
Fuck yeah! Coming again to save the motherfucking day, yeah, America! Fuck yeah! Freedom is the only way, yeah! Terrorists, your game is through, 'cause now you have to answer to America! Fuck yeah! So lick my blood and suck on my balls, America! Fuck yeah! What you gonna do when we come for you now? It's the dream that we all share.
Data from 2011 to 2013, 38.5% of people arrested for murder, robbery, manslaughter, rape, and aggravated assault were black. This is evidence from official police reports that blacks are more likely to commit crimes than whites. And why is this? Is it the unfair justice system? You guys like to say that, but it's not.
Arrests in the United States, which means that one person is arrested for marijuana use every 42 seconds. Number 4, the reason that it's illegal has nothing to do with science or negative effects, it's because people were racist. The criminalization of marijuana in the early 20th century had nothing to do with any scientific assessment of the risks, but rather racial prejudice and politics. The first anti-marijuana laws in the Midwest and Southwest during the early 1900s were directed at Mexican migrants and Mexican Americans. And guess what? Number 5, it's still racist today. Latino and black communities today are still subject to widely disproportionate marijuana enforcement practices, even though these groups are no more likely than whites to use or sell marijuana. According to a 2012 ACLU report, black people are 3.7 times more likely to be arrested for marijuana possession than white people, despite comparable usage rates.
After the ugliness in Alabama, when Trump supporters beat up a black protester, Trump decided that he was going to tweet out something that shows the real problem is black people. So he tweeted out this, USA Crime Statistics 2015. Year's not over. I don't know where they compile that from. We'll get to that in a second. It has a black guy holding a gun sideways with a mask on, and it says blacks killed by whites, 2%, blacks killed by police, 1%, whites killed by police, 3%, whites killed by whites, 16%, whites killed by blacks, 81%, blacks killed by blacks, 97%. Okay. Here's a couple of problems with that. It is entirely made up. Not remotely true. Did Donald Trump bother to check that? No. He's running for president. Fact-checking. What name so? No. No interest in checking any facts. I mean, on the face of it, you go, really? Whites killed by blacks over 80%? Over 80% of the white people are killed by blacks that are killed? I mean, doesn't that make you go, really? No, it doesn't. For Trump, he goes, oh, yeah, of course. It's all the blacks killing us, man. The real problem is blacks. They kill the black people, they kill the white people. I'm going to retweet that, right? So that statistic was from the non-existent, and it says it on the bottom, Crime Statistics Bureau, San Francisco. No such organization exists. Those statistics are completely made up, out of whole cloth. In fact, the opposite is true, and it's unsurprising. Over 80% of whites are killed by other whites, okay? And it's not because white people are particularly bad. Of course not. It's because white people know more white people. A lot of the killings happen inside a family, inside acquaintances, right? White people know white people, though, so they kill each other, right? And so that's not surprising. Those are the real numbers. Instead, I mean, look at how...
Did you know that black on black crime is a made-up issue people raise just to make us seem out of control? Yes, more than 85% of violent crimes against blacks is perpetuated by other black people. But the exact same thing is true for white on white crime. Our violence is segregated, just like your neighborhood.
sciences, but funnily enough, not in mathematics. This inferiority complex leads to the whole "we was kings and shit" debacle. A lot of black people like to assume that they were Egyptian kings, which is funny because it doesn't help the whole slave thing. But nonetheless, they really weren't kings.
Yo mama, gravy all on her pajamas. I'ma pull off in that Honda while I'm fucking up some comma. Got them pearly whites, cause I'm flossing. Always with your bitch. It gets so exhausting. Saucing, bitch, I'm fucking awesome. Saucing, I pull up with the frosting. Gravy.
The Ghana Empire emerged from the Mande-speaking areas which today span Mali, Mauritania, Senegal, Guinea, Gambia, Ivory Coast, Burkina Faso, Sierra Leone, and Liberia. Its wealth was based mainly on gold, cola nuts, millet, sorghum, and slaves. They traded with the nomadic Tuaregs of the Sahara Desert, who crossed the Sahel on camels laden with salt, textiles, and exotic goods.
In the book of IQ and the Wealth of Nations, it talks about the IQ of the average sub-Saharan African being at 80. The IQ of an African American is normally at 85. White populations in Australia, Canada, New Zealand, Europe, South Africa, and the United States score really close to one another, being at around 100. The reason to why IQ is such an important factor is because a lower IQ causes many detrimental factors in society. These include poverty, dropping out of school, unemployment.
Got the dice rigged, and they say he accosted the man with the sliced wig. Allegedly, the investigation is still ongoing. In this pesky nation, he got the best con flowing. The pot doubles, now they really got troubles. Madman never go like snot bubbles.
Not that the sources were from the Stormer, although that is laughable, it was that the video and articles contained some outlandish claims. It said blacks lacked abstract thought because the Zulu to English dictionary contained only 250 pages and does not include a working definition for any abstract concepts. Meanwhile, Zulu is only one of 11 official languages of South Africa. It also claimed that blacks are inherently tribal, but human beings are tribal. This is not new information or something unique to black people. Once the backlash began, Rage took to Twitter to play the victim and claim that people were simply triggered. Now, to be fair, there were a lot of people simply defaulting to calling her racist, rather than pointing out how she was wrong. So, I sought to rectify that by giving her a calm and reasonable response because we had a friendly exchange about a month prior to the release of this video. Here's what I said. I'm not a skeptic, but the argument is short-sighted. Clearly, not all people are born equal. I will give you that due to the differences in the potential of individuals. However, IQ is not the be-all end-all measure of intelligence, and it's not tied to race. There are reasons beyond melanin content for averages. Access to education would be a major one. An IQ can be improved with education, therefore low IQ isn't inherent to race. Everyone is different. Some people comprehend different concepts better than others. All have their strengths and weaknesses. Be wary of what you listen to. There's a middle ground somewhere between Daily Stormer and social justice. Whether you agree or disagree with me is not the point, but as you can see, I didn't call her any names or be rude in the slightest, and yet I never received a reply. Instead, she continued to spread the narrative on her timeline that she was being attacked for giving the facts. Fact seems to be a word people default to when they want you to believe they're speaking from an authoritative position, and if you question or disagree with them, then you're just being ignorant to reality and denying science. It couldn't possibly be because her conclusion of these rather questionable statistics made a massive leap.
Being pretty, speaking a couple different European languages, and then posting your thoughts on a social media platform does not always make you right. Hey everyone, it's Patty Politics, St. Patty from Twitter, and Based Black Mom. So, something interesting happened yesterday. Hi, I Think I'm Real, another YouTuber, actually posted a cool name that I thought was pretty good, and I'm going to use it before he trademarks it, but right-wing SJW. These people are right-wingers who are social justice warriors. They come up with new ideas, new terms, and new beliefs, just like social justice warriors do, with misrepresented statistics, misguided beliefs, and an insatiable need to say anything about other ethnic groups just so you feel good about yourself.
Yeah,
ain't even wanna with the boy, cause the way I'm living life is a motherfucking joy. I'm some grown man B.I. I could've been a girl or any ethnicity up in the world, but I'm rolling with the top back. I ain't gotta worry where the cops at. I ain't gotta wear a fucking bra strap. Me and the crew are really doing everything that we like to. Man, it's a damn good day to be a white dude.